A single horse comes down the valley at first light, and there is no one on its back. Then another, then a dozen more, reins dragging through frozen mud, saddles empty, breath steaming in the cold. Something happened up that corridor in the dark. Something that, in this reconstruction, cost one of the two finest armies that ever marched more men in a single morning than it had lost in years of real war. And here is the strange part. The army that paid that price is not running. It is walking away in perfect order, ranks closed, banners up, unbroken. So look at the dead in the snow, and the discipline in the retreat, and ask the only question that matters. Who actually won here? The two men who fought this never breathed the same century.
One never lost a battle. The other never lost a war.
1,500 years separate them. One of them never lost a battle in his life. The other never lost a war. Put Alexander the Great and Genghis Khan on the same ground, at the peak of their power, and you get the one fight history never got to run. Can the greatest attacking mind the world ever produced be stopped by a wall? And can the deadliest army ever built lose a battle and still not lose the war? This never happened, not one moment of it. But nothing in it is invented either. The armies are real. The weapons, the doctrine, the ground, the limits, the winters, all real, taken from the battles these two actually fought and set loose to see what breaks first. This is a model, run hour by hour. By the end, you'll know who takes this ground, exactly how, and what it costs him. So rewind. Back before the first arrow. It is late autumn, and a mountain corridor in Sogdiana is about to become the most important 900 meters on Earth. Start with the army everyone should fear, because it has earned it. In this model, it is 122, and the Mongol war machine is the most organized force on the planet. Not a horde, a system. Men grouped in tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, promoted for skill and nothing else, drilled to break apart at a signal and come back together a mile away without a word. Every rider leads spare horses, so the army moves faster than the news of it. It carries no supply train. It carries a bow that outranges most things on legs, and a way of war older than any wall. And the trick at the center of it is patience wearing the mask of panic. The Mongols turn and run, and the enemy, every time, chases. Then the trap closes. It has emptied cities. It has ended empires. The man who commands it is nearly 60. He does not scream. He reads scout reports the way a scholar reads scripture.
We will not fight him on this field. Let his pride choose the battleground. We will choose the time.
And in his whole life he has never once fought a battle because his pride told him to. That restraint is the most dangerous thing on this battlefield. But every weapon has a shape it needs. Horse archers need room. Room to circle, to loose, to run and wheel, and come again. Give them a step and they are a storm you cannot touch. Remember that word, room. It is going to decide everything. Now, the other man, and the one idea he has spent his life proving. Numbers need width. At Issus he was outnumbered, badly. The sources argue over how badly, but they all agree the Persians should have swallowed him whole. So he chose a strip of coast a few kilometers wide, pinned between mountains and sea, and the extra thousands simply had nowhere to stand. He didn't beat the numbers. He erased the room they needed. His army is a different animal from the Mongol one. A wall of pikes 18 feet long, 5 ranks deep, that nothing has ever walked through from the front. Heavy cavalry to swing the killing blow. Engineers who once threw a causeway across the sea to crack open a city. And torsion catapults that, shooting downhill, outrange any bow ever drawn on horseback. Here is the part that should frighten Genghis. Alexander is the only commander of the ancient world who ever cornered a steppe horse archer army and destroyed it. At the Jaxartes, on a river, with those same catapults sweeping the far bank clean. And then he spent 3 brutal years fighting guerrillas in these exact mountains. He knows this ground. It is carved into the scars on his body. 2 armies that have never lost. But an honest fight needs an honest setup, so let me say the hard thing plainly. Genghis Khan would never choose to fight here.
This terrain favors them, not us. Genghis Khan would never choose to fight here.
Avoiding ground like this is half the reason he never lost. So why does he come? Because the prize leaves him no choice. Behind this corridor sits Bactria, its cities, its harvests, the road to everything south. And there is exactly one way through, wide enough for a siege train. Genghis stands over his map and counts the roads, and every one of them costs him. The goat paths over the peaks? A scout can climb them, a trebuchet cannot. Swing wide around the range? That means a desert crossing onto a plain, where Alexander has already fouled the wells, and even Mongol horses drink. Wait for spring? Spring means feeding 100,000 horses in a stripped land, while the cities behind him remember the word rebellion, and the snow closes the road home. He is not being lured, he is being priced. Every smart option costs more than the one right in front of him. That is Alexander's real weapon here.
He is not being lured. He is being priced.
Not the wall, but the arithmetic that makes the wall the cheapest door. And it gets worse before a single arrow flies. Alexander empties the whole plain. Harvest behind the walls, wells poisoned. And the Mongol army, the one that lives off the land, arrives to find no land left. The grass thins, the horses hollow out. In this reconstruction, the first thing Alexander kills is not a soldier, it is the pasture. Day 11, the first tumen goes up the corridor. 10,000 riders, a test. And now you are one of them. You come off the open steppe where you have never once been caught, and the walls close in on both sides, and the sky shrinks to a strip of gray. There is no room to circle, no room to wheel. The man beside you cannot spread out. He can only push forward into the man in front. And then the bolts come. Not across you, the way arrows come on open ground, but straight down the length of the column, one heavy iron shaft punching through 3 men at once from the terraces above. The storm that was never touchable is suddenly a column in a hallway, and the hallway is on fire from over your head. This is not a guess. It happened for real. In 1221, when a Mongol army was caught in a narrow valley north of Kabul and torn apart in 2 days. The system has an off switch. The switch is made of rock. The tumen pulls back down the corridor, leaving hundreds behind it. And if you think that shakes Genghis, you have not been listening. The probe was never meant to win. He has just paid 1,000 lives to buy a map of exactly where Alexander's fire comes from. So he stops trying to win the way everyone expects, and starts doing everything else. His scouts climb for the side paths, and find a Macedonian watchtower waiting at the top of each one, because Alexander garrisoned these passes years ago, and the model lets him remember. Climbers go up the terraces in the dark, and hypaspists are already there, braced on ground they have held for a month. The Mongols light fires to blind the batteries with smoke, and at dawn the mountain breathes cold air down the corridor and wipes the smoke away. Raiders slip behind the pass to cut the supply line, and find there is no line to cut, because the food is already inside the walls and the depots are forts.
The probe was never meant to win.
Every trick fails the same way, and every failure teaches Genghis the same lesson from a new angle. This trap was not built in a season. It was built out of 3 years of a young king bleeding in these mountains, learning every ugly rule they have. So the patient man changes the game. If he cannot fight the army, he will take the wall. He calls up his engineers. The siege engineers are the part people forget about the Mongols.
If he cannot fight the army, he takes the wall. He calls up his engineers.
They are the best in the world, hauled in from conquered China, with trebuchets and fire. Stones start arcing up at the rampart. Alexander's catapults answer from the high terraces, and shooting downhill they reach farther than the Mongol engines shooting up. His machines are cruder. The mountain gives him the range anyway. The duel grinds for days. Then the Mongols drive prisoners up the corridor ahead of the assault, farmers taken from the plain. So the first volley from the wall falls on their own people. Men on the rampart hesitate. Some of them are Sogdians too. The wall holds, but it is starting to show cracks, and the model tracks each one. Down by the river, the rampart stands on loose gravel, and gravel does not love trebuchet stones. There is dead ground under the north face the catapults cannot quite reach. And every veteran who falls up here came from a country that ran out of them years ago, half a world away. The mountain protects Alexander from the horde. Nothing protects him from arithmetic. And then, one night, a Sogdian slips down the valley in the dark and sells the Mongols a single true sentence, where the wall stands on gravel. On the 19th morning, the siege lines are empty. The trebuchets stand abandoned. Cook fires still smoke. The whole camp looks like an army that broke and ran in the night.
Nothing protects him from arithmetic.
And Alexander's officers are already shouting the word that has killed everyone who ever faced these people. Pursue. Chase them down. Finish it. Understand what this is. It is not a rout. It is the oldest trick the Mongols own, the feigned retreat, the exact move that emptied Samarkand, wearing the costume of a real collapse. Chase it, and the phalanx leaves the corridor. And the instant it steps past those 900 meters, it stops being a wall and becomes a column strung out in the open. And columns are what the Mongols eat.
Place the best men behind the weakest point in the wall.
Alexander walks the empty camp, reads the ground, and refuses, not out of fear, out of recognition. That bait detachment is his own trick, the one he ran at the Jaxartes, grown up and wearing Mongol armor. You cannot bait a man with his own invention. So the gate stays shut. And now, quietly, the whole war turns on a single sentence. Genghis has not lost this battle. He is losing the calendar. Every day that passes stays closed. The snow line walks downhill toward his road home. The grass under 100,000 horses thins toward nothing, and the finest army on earth stands in a country that is slowly starving it. For the first time in his life, the clock belongs to the other man, which leaves him one move, and it is not retreat. Force the gate before the snow does. At the 1 week seam a traitor just handed him. Everything he has, all at once, before dawn. An hour before dawn on the 23rd day.
Force the gate before the snow does. Everything he has, all at once, before dawn.
The corridor turns to fire. Every trebuchet the Mongols have opens at once, and the first stones come in burning. Fire on the rampart, fire on the terraces, the whole gorge lit orange from below. Behind the flames come the prisoners again, and behind them the real weight, heavy cavalry, down off their horses now, on foot, in armor, climbing over 3 weeks of their own dead. The Imperial Guard is in that column. Genghis is spending everything, and he is spending it at the gravel seam by the river. You are in the third wave. You cannot see the wall yet, only the backs of the men ahead, and the terraces flashing high on both sides. The bolts do not come at you. They come through you, down the length of the column, and the man 3 ranks ahead is simply gone. You climb over what is left of him, and then the pikes come out of the smoke all at once, 5 rows deep, filling the corridor wall to wall, and there is no way around them, because there is no around. There is only the width, and the width is full. Then the seam gives. Down by the river the gravel folds under the 100th stone, the palisade drops, and the guard pours through the gap exactly where the traitor promised. This is the moment. A corridor defense is a chain, and a chain has no second shape. If that gap widens, the whole thing comes apart. And down into the breach, on foot, comes a man in a crimson cloak with his household guard at his shoulder, the way he has led every desperate moment since he was 19 years old. Nothing else. Hold the width.
Nothing else! Hold the width!
For half an hour, in the smoke, it is a coin standing on its edge. The guard pushes, the pikes bend, neither breaks. And then the terraces finish reloading, the bolts come down the gap again, the breach chokes with fallen men, and the assault stalls. On a spur above the burning corridor, an old man who has watched every second of it in silence finally says 4 words. Enough. Bring my army home.
Enough. Bring my army home.
And here is the thing that tells you exactly who you are dealing with. Nobody runs. The horns sound, and the Tumans peel away in order, rear guards screening, the deadliest attack you will ever see dying without a single break in the ranks. It is snowing before the last banner clears the mouth of the corridor. The wall is still standing, scarred, smoking, half broken, standing. Step back from the smoke, because this is where it gets honest. The strongest argument in this whole reconstruction belongs to the man who just lost, and it is not small.
The strongest argument belongs to the man who just lost.
The real Genghis Khan built the most terrifying record in military history, partly by refusing, again and again, to fight exactly this battle. Raid the plain, starve the province, ride away, come back in spring with the grass. And the one time a commander did beat a Mongol army in a narrow valley, that same man, Jalal al-Din, met Genghis a few months later on open ground by the Indus, and Genghis broke him and drove him into the river. Give that its full weight. Then, notice what it admits. The only way the Horde wins here is by not fighting at all. And a war you cannot afford to fight is a war you are already losing. This corridor had a clock, and the clock was Alexander's. So, on this ground, under this winter, the verdict is Alexander, and it is not close. 3 things decide it. Width, which cancels the 2 weapons the entire Mongol system is built on, the circling attack and the feigned retreat, in one stroke. Reach, because artillery shooting downhill outranges the bow, the same edge that won the Jaxartes for real. And time, the Mongols' oldest ally, turned against them by grass and snow, and a man patient enough to let the winter do his killing. But say the rest plainly, because it is the truth. Genghis lost nothing here that the steppe cannot give back, except one season. His army rode home whole. Put these same 2 men on open ground, with no walls and no width to hold.
The verdict is Alexander, but the answer changes on open ground.
And the answer changes, and every soldier on both sides of that broken wall knows it. He was not beaten because he was weak. His was the finest army on earth. It was just standing, for one winter, in the one place on earth built to beat it. That was the victory, not the charge in the breach, the choice of the ground, months earlier, in silence. One last thing, said straight. This was a model, not a memory. It never happened, and 15 centuries of change separate these two armies in ways no reconstruction can fully price. But the pieces are real, and you can check every one of them. Issus, where narrow ground erased a numbers advantage. The Jaxartes, the only time an ancient army cornered and destroyed a steppe horde. The Mongol conquest of Khwarazmia fought on these same rivers. And Parwan, the proof that a valley could beat a Tumen. The honest doubts cut both ways. The Saka were not the Mongols, and Jalal al-Din was not Alexander. But the best evidence for this verdict is Genghis Khan's own life. He became unbeatable, partly by never standing where he would have to fight this. Which leaves the one question this fight cannot answer. The mountains beat mobility. Both men know it. Spring melts the road, the grass comes back, and somewhere past these peaks waits open ground. No corridor, no terraces, no width to hold. The same two minds. No gate this time. That is the next reconstruction.